Today I want to talk about mental prepping. And not so much what your mental state is in a disaster, but how you can think through situations and prep without actually doing them. Try adding the technique of mental prepping to your prepping strategy. Now, to give an example, not everybody wants to turn off their power for an entire weekend or week and see how they do. Do they have the preps they need? But you know what? You can do a mental exercise to go through that. Every time you do something normal on the weekend or that week, you should think of, okay, would I be able to do this with my preps? If not, what prep do I need? That type of thing. And you really can plan better for an event to happen. And sometimes it doesn't even happen to be when you're doing those steps. So, like driving home, I'll think, oh, what would happen right now if my car broke down, wouldn't start at all, go to the side of the road? And I go, well, kind of cockily, I would use my cell phone and I'd call either a family member or AAA. But then little devils on my other shoulder goes, but you left your cell phone at work, which admittedly, sometimes I do. Okay, well then I just get out of the car and there's houses along the route and go and knock on one of the houses and ask if I could use their phone or if they would call for me. And they go, but something's going on where everybody won't open their door. Okay. Well, guess I'd start walking home. But that little devil's going, it's a terrible, terrible ice snowstorm. You could end up getting stranded along the way. Thinking, okay, well, I keep those winter boots. I have my winter coat, hat, and even spare jeans and sweatshirt in the car. I have numerous blankets. I think I could probably still make it home. But then I think, okay, well, which is closer? You know, I live about 8 miles from home to work. So I guess what was closer, I might walk back to work because there I have heat and I have a phone, a landline to use, and actually there's always food in the freezer or the refrigerator also. Then of course, the little devil goes, but you accidentally forgot to bring your keys today. So you can't get back into the office. Fine. So then, do you stay in the car or do you try to walk home? Well, if it's really that bad of weather, I guess I would try to stay in the car. Maybe get out my little NOAA weather radio that I always keep in my bug out roll, see what the conditions are. But then I think, well, you know what? It's really not that far to walk to the fire station. So that's probably what I would do. And you can go on and on with this type of scenario. And usually at the end, if that little devil thing is good enough, it's going, then I'm screwed or then I'm dead, But the idea is it helps you start thinking about all the steps. What would you do if something happened? And I call them kind of mental games, but it's really a great prepping idea. And if you're, sitting waiting in the doctor's office or waiting for your child to get out of soccer practice, whatever, you can go through some of these scenarios. What would I do if this happened? Okay, then it gets worse, then it gets worse. What would I do each of those steps? So part of it is to see, do you have the preps you need? Then the other part as you go through this, do you have the skills you need? And then there's another part. Do you really have the mental conditioning that you need? Now I'm going to give you something that's totally not really emergency preparedness at all. But when my daughter got married, it was about, maybe 10 years ago now, I didn't want to cry at the wedding. Yeah, I do cry sometimes at weddings. And my daughter said if I cried, she'd start crying, and then there goes her eye makeup. So I was told I could not cry. Well, I kept mentally practicing the event in my head, and that actually really, really helped. And then I also read that if you smiled, it was very hard to cry. So I'm sure through the entire proceedings, I had this silly grin, because if I was like this, then I can't cry, right? And then I also learned that looking through a camera kind of distances you from the event, and so I took a lot of pictures. But anyway, I didn't cry. But the idea was I keep preparing ahead of time for the event. And that's a really simple example, but I'm sure you can think of a lot of examples where you have to have mental stamina, and can you keep going or not? So that's all part of our mental conditioning, our mental preparedness. But also, our mind is a great thing for thinking up scenarios and how would we or our family do in those scenarios. Now, I know Practice Prepper sounds like he's doing a great professional type series of aliens invading, and how do you prepare for that? How do you deal with that as a prepper? So that could be easily a scenario, right, in your mind, or if it was zombies, whatever. But going through it, you start to say, okay, I have this in my car, I have this in my home, or I carry this on me at all times. And it starts to reinforce your prepping strategy, but also it shows gaps in your strategy. Now, of course, the best thing, the absolute best thing, is to actually do an event and find out what you're lacking. But for some of them, we can't. So we really have to prepare mentally. And I just think this mental preparedness, or actually maybe fantasizing, is a good prepper strategy, because it really will help you prepare and have better prepper strategy and know where the holes are in your preps. So I'd love to know if any of you do this. Have you used this as part of your prepping strategy? If so, what are some of the prepping events that you have mentally tried to prepare for? I'd love to hear from you down below. This is Prepper Potpourri saying, as always, please subscribe, share the knowledge, and thank you so much for your support. Thumbs up if you like this video.